Ron here from the hit podcast, The Other Side of Wall Street. And if you're like most of us here in the trading community, you no doubt have mentors or experts that you look up to for trading advice and knowledge. Well, how many times have you wished you could just sit down with one of those experts and have a good old one-on-one conversation with no script, no planned questions, just a friendly chat? Well, that's what we're bringing to you here. Each week, we'll visit with a different expert and have an up-close and personal conversation about anything and everything involving trading. So sit back and enjoy as we get to know our special guest. I tell my clients that being a trader, especially in the early days, is like being a severe alcoholic, and your job is a bartender. I mean, you're working every night. And
what a great analogy. What a great analogy.
You can never let your guard down. I mean, because those emotions are going to get you every time. So you've got to be vigilant 100%. You know, they're always on your shoulder waiting to screw you up.
Just sitting there. Yeah, yeah. It gives you a whole different concept of sobriety.
Imagine what it would look like. What would it feel like being an alcoholic, sitting there with all those bottles of alcohol around you every night?
Just every night. And I'm pouring them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I could just pour a little extra. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see it.
To me, dealing with your money, with fear, the greed, and the lust, and all the things you talk about, to me, it's something you can never ignore. It's never going to go away. I believe you can learn it, but I believe if you let your guard down, you might just slip back into bad habits.
You will. You know, if you take a look at real serious performance artists, whether or not they're athletes or concert pianists or what, is that what you see is that, first of all, they have enough sense to find a coach.
Right.
The second is, what do you think that coach is doing with them?
Mm-hmm.
You're going over basic drills of where, you know, you're learning to make sure that your hands, that your mind is all synchronized together in performance. And you know, like a concert pianist, if he takes a week off, it takes him 3 to 4 weeks to get back in his groove. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's that kind of stuff where you're realizing that, yeah, you can take days off, but when you start taking chunks of time off, you've got problems because that neural circuitry, you know, it just, you know, novelties just want something other than the same old. And yet at the same time, if you're going to perform on a really high level, it has to just be indoctrinated into your body. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much what it is. Kind of like the first element of the work that I do is recognition that the emotion is biological, not psychological, and that because it's biological, it's going to have elements to it. And two of those elements that are highly accessible are breathing and muscle tension. It's that if you're watch a trader as he trades, what you see him holding his breath. You'll start seeing tense muscles. What you're looking at is an emotion triggering and heading toward fight flight. Mm-hmm. He's looking to either fight or flight, and you begin to see it. And if you have a heart monitor on him, what you would see is you'd see the pulse rate kicking in. Mm-hmm. And you'd see, and you know, in my later work, what happens is you actually are working with a heart rate monitor, and it's chest strap. It's not one of those things that hands on your hands. And what you're doing is you've established a performance zone by your heart rate. Okay, that you know, and that is the zone that you need to be in so that you're alert, you're focused, you're ready. You're not completely just so rested out that you miss trades, but you're focused, you're ready, and yet at the same time, cognition has not been tampered with yet.
Right.
That's the big deal, because that one is so easily, I mean, that there is a traffic cop that as information comes in, it makes a decision about whether or not the information is going to go to the new brain, thinking brain, where you make rational decisions, or whether or not you're going to take the shortcut to fight flight. And what you're doing is you're realizing, oh, what I'm doing by not watching breathing, by not watching the tension and not watching my heart rate, what I'm doing is I'm basically aiding and abetting my body triggering historical fight-flight patterns. That's what I'm doing. And as you begin to train it, and what I would be doing is I'm training a guy saying, okay, you're going to have to learn how to diaphragmatically breathe, but you're going to have to learn to diaphragmatically breathe as you trade. Breathing in the yoga studio is useless. Mm-hmm. It's not a learned skill there. No, can you do it? Can you do it under the pressure of uncertainty? And by the way, that's actually what the military teaches people. They actually teach them mindfulness and breathing skills under combat conditions. They realize it makes a better soldier.
Right.
So, and the same thing with traders.
True. Are you familiar with cognitive biases? I'm sure you are, right?
Oh, boy. Yeah.
That's a dumb question. In our classes, we go through 7 different ones that I feel are more aimed at traders. And so would you mind if we went through some of those?
Absolutely. I'd love to.
The first one would be loss aversion, the tendency for people to have a strong preference for avoiding losses over acquiring gains.
Yeah.
Take it away. What do you think?
That's just rooted right into our survival skills. Remember when we came down, when our ancestors were on the African savannah, mm-hmm. we would be on a hill, and what we did is that we developed the ability of looking out into the field, and we made an assumption that there was a saber-toothed tiger behind every bush out there, when in fact, only about 1 in 10,000 actually had a saber-toothed tiger. But with loss aversion, what you're doing is you're stacking the deck and you're assuming that they're all over the place. And what you do is you do avert the potential loss, but you become a worrywart and you don't take action.
Or you avert the loss by not closing the trade, crossing your fingers saying, I know it's going to come back up. I know it will. I just have to wait long enough. It'll come back. And it never does.
It never does.
But, or they can't take a loss when it's $100, but they let it go, and then it becomes $500 and becomes $1,000. And if they couldn't take it at 100, they sure can't take it at 1,000. So they just sit on it. It gets bigger and bigger. But yeah. And those same people avoiding, acquiring gains, that they're the ones that close the trades early and because they're afraid. So the next one would be the sunk cost effect, the tendency to treat money that has already been committed or spent as more valuable than the money that may be spent in the future.
Say that again.
Okay, the sunk cost effect, the tendency to treat money that has already been committed or spent as more valuable than money that may be spent in the future.
Oh, absolutely. That's the whole thing behind revenge trading. Mm-hmm. The thing is you're looking at it and you, oh my God, I've spent it and now it's gone. I have to get it back. Mm-hmm. As if you can get your money back.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What happens is you trade and there's potential one way or the other. And you're just getting rid of you're getting rid of the future, and you're stuck with this stuff that's already there, and you end up really doing dumb, stupid things. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. The next one would be the disposition effect, the tendency for people to lock in gains and ride losses, which is kind of what we just talked about with loss aversion. They take their wins too quick and they let their losses run, trying to avoid the pain, but I think we
all the time. That's like that's one of the things that you have to learn not to do, and it takes a lot. And a lot of this is what I want you to, when you start talking about cognitive biases, what you're looking at is stuff that's built into our biology.
Right.
These are not learned. Mm-hmm. Well, at some moment they got learned, but right. What happened is they got incorporated into our DNA, and it started getting transmitted. Mm-hmm. And these at one time had really good survival value. But now, under the circumstances of trading, they're not helpful at all. They become dangerous.
Yes, I agree. And I think you'll like the next one. outcome bias, the tendency to judge a decision by its outcome rather than by the quality of the decision at the time it was made.
Oh, absolutely.
Watching your videos, I imagine this will be right up your alley.
It is. I cannot imagine. It's kind of like, it's like, I have a friend who, he says, Randy, when I'm working in my group, all they talk about are these big trades that they knocked out and had all this great stuff happen. Mm-hmm. What a great outcome. And what happens is that you come here, you talk, and they talk about this, when in fact, I know they're losing money. Mm-hmm. But what they don't do is that it's kind of like they become so focused on an outcome that they don't see what they really need to train to. Mm-hmm. And again, it's something where, of course, you want to hit a home run. But, the truth is, when you look at really good hitters, is they're getting a lot of singles and doubles. Mm-hmm. Right. And to them, it's just a hit. You're just hitting the baseball.
Mm-hmm. I know in one of your videos I watched, you made the point that you can do everything wrong and still be right, and you can do everything right and still be wrong. So, it's, especially in this case, if you did everything right and you were still wrong, that's the way it goes. That's the probabilities coming back into play. But I've seen so many traders that something goes wrong and they're ready to throw their entire trading plan out the window because of a bad trade or a bad string of trades. Even though they were doing everything correctly, but it still didn't work.
Oh, and find a new teacher. Yeah. Get new toys.
I call it the trading method shuffle. If one doesn't work, just go buy a new book. If that doesn't work,
buy a new book.
And the whole time it's here. It's not the system.
Yeah. And what you'll see is when they open their closet, it is full of junk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of last year's toys. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the next one. Recency bias, tendency to weigh recent data or experiences more than data or more than earlier data. So the tendency to weigh recent data or experiences more than earlier data. So in other words,
that's straight out of biology. That's it's just like going back to my dog, is that just try to stop him. That deer that he chased, mm-hmm. He spent the next 4 days sniffing.
Right, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
highly biased.
Right. Yeah.
And that deer is long time gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to my dog,
no, he's still there somewhere.
Yeah. Dogs and traders seem to have a lot in common.
Funny. The next one would be the anchoring bandwagon effect, the tendency to believe things just because many other people believe them.
Oh, absolutely.
Media again, right? Enough media says enough things. If you get 2 or 3 analysts saying the same thing, it's got to be true.
It's got to be true. I heard it. Mm-hmm. And what you discover is there is an axiom in neurobiology that says you do not see and then believe. What happens is you believe, then you see. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that the only arbiter that matters in trading is the trading account. Right. It's the truth meter. And so what you're doing is that you come to believe something, you get all hot and bothered about some new best thing, and you believe, and then what happens is you go and use it, and it doesn't perform, but you want it to work so bad because you believe. And we have a political system based on that right now, and it's kind of like crazy. And I go, well, I'm out here in the woods, and everybody around me, I live in North Carolina, and everybody around me except us has an assault rifle, or 2, or 3, or 4, or 5. And
it's a bad movie.
Well, it's very interesting because one of them, I asked him, tell me something. And there's a lot of hunting goes on. So, guys are going to have rifles, and to be honest with you, I'm a big fan of culling deer herds. They will eat bark right off all your fruit trees, and they'll do all sorts of stuff. And if you cull them, you live in kind of an area. And so I'm talking to this guy and say, well, what do you hunt with that kind of rifle? And he says, I'm ready for the U.S. Army if they come in and try to take over my land. And I said, do you think if the U.S. Army or the Marines came, highly trained that they are in combat, do you think you, with one stupid little gun, is going to neutralize a trained force?
Right.
That the world, the world has not, the U.S. Army and Marines probably the best trained military that's ever been on the face of the earth. And here you are out in Odoak, North Carolina, and you're going to go to bat with that. So anyway, yeah, there you go.
Have you ever, in any of your people you've dealt with, get into technical analysis at all, much as far as charting and indicators and that kind of stuff?
My interest is the mind that engages that. My interest is not so much the technical analysis. My interest is how the person actually uses the technical analysis.
That was going to be my question, because I found that nowadays, especially as more and more indicators are invented, created, and every brokerage firm wants to have more indicators than the other guy does so the clients can add more on. And so I find nowadays people are adding so many indicators, piling them on their charts, that basically, again, they have a belief in their head already. And
yeah,
you can put enough indicators on a chart that you can see whatever you want to see to justify whatever it is you think you believe. And
there's your cognitive bias right there. Yeah. And besides that, what happens is when you get all that stuff, indicator to tell you what the indicator is thinking, that kind of stuff, what happens is it slows your thinking process down. Suddenly you have all this stuff sitting there. And the other thing is, the moment that you put an indicator out there, the adaptive process, the markets are just like evolution. You put something out there and the market starts adapting. Mm-hmm. And you put indicators, you put whatever out there, and there are very smart traders who are looking at that and saying, how can I take advantage of that? Mm-hmm. They're doing that. And particularly if you start getting ones that are real popular that lots of people use, and, the boys are sitting there going, well, look at all these people move over here. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's, and again, I'm not for or against indicators. I'm not, the only thing that I find myself just going, whew, is when people say, I don't trade without stops. And I'm going, whew, then I really hope that you have emotional discipline down into your bones. But I have found stops to be an enormously important part of maintaining sanity during trading.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Oh, geez, my God. And I just know very few people who have the emotional sobriety to be able to trade without stops. Well, matter of fact, I'm not sure if I know anybody. So
that trades without stops?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've also seen a lot of people that, even though they trade with stops, first off, there's one type of person that puts their stop where they are where they feel emotionally they can take a loss. Right. So that they pick a spot that, okay, this is as much as I can tolerate. But at the same time, since they really don't know how to read the chart, it's very possible that, so let's just say something's in an uptrend, right? And all uptrends don't just go parabolically up, they correct, right? Up and down, up and down. Right. So it's very possible that where they put their emotional stop, that stock, that index, whatever it is, could make a small correction, take them out of their stop, and then continue on up the way they thought it was going to go to begin with. So by putting stops in at the wrong place, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. They put the stop in
all the time,
and they end up causing them to have a loss they didn't need to have. Whereas if they were better at technical analysis, they would know the proper place to put the stop. And then if they really wanted to manage the dollar amount, they would just trade smaller. So make the trade smaller, make the stop a little larger or a little wider.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. That's why really good trainers are important. You need to know the TA of what you're doing. You need to be able to say, yeah, this is the size stop. And it needs to be, the thing is when you say it becomes an emotional stop, I say no, it's a fear-based stop.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Understand emotional discipline is an emotional state also.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Impartiality is an emotional state that is highly coveted in trading because it leads to something called rational thinking. And the thing is, you have to make sure the cocktail of emotions from which you're building the mind. And, that's really the problem in trading is people don't realize is that the mind is coming out of the emotions. Everything's rooted in emotion. And what you're saying is, okay, I need to be able to, what I can control, even under stress, is that the emotions that I'm calling forward to engage that uncertainty and that risk and that stress. Mm-hmm. That's what you can do. And all of a sudden what you do is you build a mind that has clarity of thinking. And that would be where, you could do your TA and say, the stop is supposed to be in this range right here. It doesn't need to be where I feel good or feel okay about it, or much less when I start moving that stop around because I believe, my intuition tells me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the crazy stuff.
One of your videos that I didn't actually watch, but I saw it and I wanted to, was, and I can't remember the exact title, but it was something about trading, backing off to do more, or trading smaller to less is more.
Less is more.
Yeah. Do you want to get into that?
Well, that's what I discover when you start working with I'll call him an immature trader, an inexperienced trader, is you're looking at a person who wants to trade a lot in the belief that by trading a lot, he's going to make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And it gets him into a world of trouble because first of all, they're trying to win, not perform. That's the first thing. They're trying to do something that is impossible to control, winning or losing. And what happens as traders mature emotionally, what they discover is that they simply don't need to trade as much.
Right.
There's nothing calling them to trade more and more and more. They're not getting, as you would say, that ego fix out of that. What they realize is that the analogy I use is the American cougar versus the African lion. Is the African lion stalks prey, and there's a lot of injury. They get busted jaws, they get gored, they have to breed a lot because they're losing a lot, okay? If you look at a cougar, the way they hunt is that they will climb a tree, they will hang out on a limb, and what they've done is they've studied the forest. They know where the deer comes and goes. And what they do is they're up 10, 12 feet above the path. Mm-hmm. And what happens, it just so happens that a deer can't look up. Okay? It's a unique thing. And what happens is if you were to look at American cougar hunting, you would think it's napping. Mm-hmm. No, it's in restful wakefulness. Yep. Same thing the trader needs to develop is patience. And when it shows up, it's ready to spring, it's ready to act. And what's interesting about the cougar is when it attacks, it does not wrestle with a deer. Its paw hits it in the head, snaps its neck, and the deer just goes to the ground. It's dead.
Yeah.
So there's no chase, there's no drama. And if he misses that deer, he doesn't chase it, he gets back up the tree, and the game starts again. Does that sound like trading?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a predator, but he is an ambush predator. Mm-hmm. He understands what the forest will give him. He understands the habits that are most likely to happen, and he acts on them. And their kill rate's around 60%. Pretty good. Okay?
I look at overtrading in another way too, at least the cause of it. And I say that all of our life as kids, young adults, you always preach to work hard. get a job, work 10 hours a day, work 12 hours a day. The harder you work, the more you're going to make, the more successful you're going to be. So it's drummed into our heads, keep working. So now the trader, poor guy, comes, opens his account, puts his money in. So now he thinks, okay, well, I got to work hard. So if I'm in front of my computer and there's money in the account, I got to be trading, because that's how
There you go.